Chapter 1. Beliefs. Where should I begin? And even if there was a beginning, there certainly is no ending. So how do we write a story that never ends? Do I simply stay at the end to be continued? Because it is, continued, that is. Life never ends. You will always be. You always were and always will be. I didn't used to believe that. In fact, it took me many years to realize this truth. Truth itself is another confusing concept. My truth may be completely different than your truth. It all depends on your personal perspective and your present belief system. Beliefs play a huge role in determining one's truth. Think about it. If you were raised in a religious background such as I was, and if you never questioned what you were being taught, then you took it for granted that everything you were being taught was truth. There was no need to question the information, and if you did, you were chastised and told that it was wrong to question God, which I never understood, because if God was really the supreme being, then what would be the harm in shooting a few questions his way? If I was created by him, then what was the big deal if I had a few simple questions? Surely the being that created me had a few minutes to spare for his own creation. I mean, wasn't I worthy of his attention? Of course. Of course I was told that I was separate from God, a wretch, a sinner, unworthy of his redeeming love. How could that be? How could God's own creation not be worthy of his love? I thought that God's love for us was unconditional, or at least that is what I was always taught, but yet somehow I'm unworthy? I mean, the very definition to unconditional means there are no conditions, but I was being told just the opposite. There certainly were conditions, and quite a few, I might add. Something is just not adding up. No one really had any answers. They more or less just avoided the questions. Plus, they never seemed interested in finding any answers. They weren't always too busy or seemed to get mad at the questions, so I eventually quit asking. And what was the point anyway? It was hard enough to deal with the problems of a dysfunctional family. I know I'm not the only one. But when you're young, it seems that way. If you think about it, the world does revolve around you because you're the one experiencing it. It is you who are consciously having the experience of life. Yes, there are many involved in creating what you see as life, but it is your perspective that determines how you experience it. Beliefs play a huge role in your life, bigger than what you can imagine. They may not only control your life, they literally create it. Moment by moment. You may ask, how can that be? And I would be quick to respond, what you believe determines specifically what you will experience. In other words, what you believe to be true will be true for you. If you do not believe in something, let's use the example of aliens. If you do not believe in the existence of aliens, then in your experience, you will never experience aliens. Why? Because your ego and mind will block all incoming information pertaining to aliens, and you will only experience what you believe to be true, because that is the way it works. So the old saying, I will believe it when I see it, will never manifest, because the thinking is backwards. You must first accept the possibility of something existing before you can have it occur in your experience. Therefore, you must believe it before you can see it. I find it best to not be rock firm in any of my beliefs, because my beliefs are changing constantly. Now that I am accepting the idea that there is always more to know, the moment you decide you know everything is the moment you limit yourself, and you will never escape the box you have created for yourself. You will be held prisoner by your own belief system, and sadly, You may never figure it out. People spend their whole lives thinking that they have no control over their lives, and they blame God or others for what has happened to them. They never realize that they are the creators of their own lives, and the responsibility was theirs alone. I blamed everyone but myself. Parents, God, you name it. I just didn't understand. My thoughts and beliefs literally held me captive, which now leads me into thoughts. Does what you think about have anything to do with what you become? Well, I'm convinced it does. I believe that thoughts create their own energy, and in fact, scientists have proven this. They can actually monitor energy given off while you think. Thinking creates energy, so thoughts have power. Your thoughts send out energy and intention, and the universe receives that information, and it sets the wheels in motion for you to manifest whatever it is you hold in your thoughts. It doesn't matter if your thoughts are positive or negative, the universe has no judgment. You get exactly what you're thinking about. I highly recommend monitoring your thoughts. Pay close attention to what you think about. If you find you are thinking negatively, then change that negative thought to one more positive. Mastering this may take some time. At first it is tough, but soon you will find yourself catching those limiting thoughts and changing them automatically. In other words, you will begin consciously creating by using your own thoughts. Now that you understand that thoughts create, I would like to point out something. I would like to point something out to you. We think of television as being harmless. But have you noticed commercials? Every other commercial is cancer or illness or disease. They're drawing your attention to these for a reason. Remember, what you think about, you create. Cancer and disease are a multi-billion-dollar-a-year business. They do not wish to abolish these diseases. They want you to focus on them because they understand that thoughts create. They're creating more patients by getting you to focus your thoughts on disease, thus creating what they say they are attempting to fight. See how that works? Raising the awareness of anything is generating more thought of that, and feeding or creating more of it. There are those in control that know and understand these universal laws, and they use them against the ones who are unknowing in order to fulfill their own greed-based agendas. The simple fact that thoughts create was known in earlier times. This is not something new. It is lost knowledge. Those in control have picked and chose what they want us to focus on. They use the media. They don't want us to know about the power of thoughts and how they create. It would end their reign. They would lose their control. They would lose their power. When people begin thinking for themselves, those in control start to worry. Why do you think they want us following specific guidelines laid out to us since birth? They decide what is proper life etiquette. They decide what we are taught and how we are taught. Why do you think it is that a student that doesn't fit within their ideas is frowned upon? They wish to create only cookie cutter kids. Kids that will grow up and fit into their mindless society. That way their reign of power continues from generation to generation. Nobody understands this, so nobody questions this. They simply follow along like good little sheeple, First you're born, then you go to school, then you go to college, then you get a job, then you get married, then you get a house, then you have children, and by this time you're deeply in debt. You have no choice but to work, and that is exactly where they want you. You're feeding their greed-based system, you're playing their game, you're following their rules. You're stuck on the human hamster wheel with little chance of escaping. Oh, you could escape, but that would take you figuring out what was happening, and that you were on the hamster wheel in the first place. So you go to work or school, you come home tired, you watch television, which does your thinking for you, by the way. Then you go to bed. Next day you do the same. It is like the perfect system to keep you from thinking for yourself. You literally have no time for you. You are way too busy. Quiet time is spiritual time. That is where all your answers come from. But if you're too busy, then you cannot awaken. And the ones in power know this. That is why the system is designed the way it is. Yes, it is nice to have things, but your happiness is not determined by things. That is why there are those with many material possessions who are still miserable. They connect who they are with their career or value. They connect who they are with their own career or value their own self-worth according to how many things they've accumulated. The only thing that will make you truly happy is to figure out who you are, and the only way to do that is by going within, being in nature or through meditation. Meditation is not that difficult. It is simply sitting quietly and clearing your mind. Of course, clearing your mind is usually the issue, because as soon as you sit still, the mind begins to wander. It becomes bored, and the babbling begins. Don't become frustrated. It happens to all of us. I found it is easier for me to direct my focus on an item such as a lit candle or a plant. Start out meditating for 5 minutes at a time, and then work your way up to 15 minutes, then 30. It doesn't have to be hours at a time, although it greatly raises your frequency. A short time is better than no time. It greatly raises your frequency. And it is way easier to find small intervals of spare time throughout your busy day. If you are out in nature, you will find it much easier to meditate. Just sit by a gentle stream and focus on the sounds around you. Wind, birds, water flowing. It is nature's song. Music is another way to focus while meditating. I recommend listening to music without words. I find that listening to music with words tend to get my mind thinking, and the babbler shows up again. Doesn't really matter what type of music as long as it doesn't distract you. Music is frequency and vibration, as are you. That is why we are drawn to music. I always say a prayer is talking to God, then meditation is listening for the answer. Problem is, most of us talk all the time, but rarely do we take time to listen.